Hi, Nigel here with the Drive Wire, and this is the 2022 Chevy ZR2 Bison edition. So it's a ZR2 essentially with some extra protein. So anyway, as you can see, we have already got it quite dirty. We'll show you that footage where we took it off-road, which is what it does best, later on in this video. What exactly is a Bison? Chevy takes the completed ZR2, ships it off to a company called American Expedition Vehicles, or AEV, has a badge on the back to say just that, and they put on 5 skid plates. They're boron steel heavy-duty skid plates. The 5 include 1 on the gas tank at the rear, 1 on the transfer case, 1 on the radiator, and then 1 on each of the axles to protect the differentials. So 5 in all. The other thing they do, they completely change the bumper out. It's a shorter version. It helps with approach angles, and it also has an attachment for a winch, not included in this particular truck. And then you also notice this more aggressive grille, and something interesting, there are no exterior bow tie badges on this vehicle at all. In fact, there's only 1, and that's inside on the steering wheel. And then at the back, the rear bumper gets these 2 integrated mounting points, a little AEV symbol right there, and then another AEV symbol right here on the right-hand side. And as I mentioned, no bow tie badges. And then finally on the exterior, you get these dark granite wheels, 17-inch, and then these 31-inch Goodyear Wrangler tires for fun off-roading. So the question is this worth it? The Bison improvements are $5,750 on top of the regular ZR2 price. This car as a ZR2 comes in around $45,000, but when you add the Bison onto it, it becomes quite high. This one out the door is like 55, so it's a lot to pay, but manufacturers are definitely starting to push out these more off-road aggressive vehicles with more bells and whistles on them. The good news is you have a lot of choice. If you want to go ahead and spend your time sifting through parts catalogs and going to different places and fitting it all on yourself, you could probably get it for a lot cheaper. But a lot of people don't want that. They want the car ready to go and ready to have some fun. So room in the back in the Bison is pretty good. Seats aren't too bad. They're a little bit maybe upright for a long journey. Moderate headroom. This seat's pretty much all the way back. Passengers get a little bit of power here, the old 12 volt. There's my case of Blue Def that Chevy gave me. And yes, I leave it in the car because if I leave it in my garage, I'll probably forget it when they come to collect the car. So I had a couple of comments saying, why'd you keep it in the car when it lasts for over 1,000 miles? Well, that's the reason why. Can also lift these seats up. Obviously they're split, as is typical these days, and you get some storage space underneath the seat, which is quite nice. And you can also pull on this strap right here and pull both of the seats down for a sort of a flat cargo area. Make sure you got the seat out of the way before you do, otherwise the headrest will catch on it. So as I said, there's a couple of options under the hood. The ZR2 that we tested last year had the V6. It's pretty common across a lot of Chevy vehicles. 305 horsepower, 275 foot-pounds, 8-speed automatic transmission. It's a pretty good engine. This one is the 2.8 liter Duramax diesel, which has 181 horsepower and 369 foot-pounds of torque, also driven through an 8-speed automatic transmission. So on the front, it's pretty nice. This ZR2 gets leather seats as standard. They're powered, height, tilt, etc. All the adjustments that you would need. Chevy's interiors are always, for me, somewhat of a letdown. There's some hard, scratchy plastics, and some of the design elements aren't that great. True, it's a better interior, I think, than a Tacoma TRD Pro. Sorry, Toyota fanboys. And then for the Rubicon Gladiator, I think their interiors are better than this Chevy. One of the things that really annoys me is they've put this wireless charger in here. I have an iPhone 12, and admittedly it is in a case, but it won't fit in there. And if I take it out of the case, it still doesn't fit, and it won't charge. So that's sort of a waste of time. Other than that, though, everything is functional. This is a new gear lever here that they've put on. It used to be in a sort of a half T shape here. I think this one looks a little bit nicer. Cool part about these trucks is you get the old-fashioned key few people might not know what to do with those these days, with push button starts. Everything else is pretty decent. There's a quite small 8-inch screen that works, it functions. It could be a bigger screen. I wish it were a bigger screen, but everything works really well. The Chevy infotainment system is generally pretty good. It's pretty decent, it's pretty fast. HVAC controls are down here. So what really counts is really the controls along here, right underneath the HVAC controls. You've got your traction control off, you've got your 2 differential locks. So you can lock the rear diff here, you can lock the front one, obviously hazard warning. It's got an exhaust brake, and then you've got hill descent control right here, and then a light for the back of the truck. Heated seats on this one are very nice. It's been cold, so that's been a nice extra feature. So ahead of the driver, pretty decent, easy to use controls. You've got a little up-down arrow that you can check out. Your trip 1, trip 2, I'm averaging 18.2 miles per gallon. So that has included everything that we've done off-road, which we're obviously going to show you pretty soon. And then you've also got your fuel range, which is super helpful. I mean, this thing will go for a long time. And I imagine that if you took a long trip on road, you could get like over 500 miles out of this car. And then just the usual stuff, you know, where your tire pressures are at, oil pressure, fuel filter life, transmission fluid, off-road pages, so you can see how far you're leaning, whether you're going to tip over, and then your angle of ascent or decline, and where your all-wheel drive system is, which this one has a 2-wheel drive high, 4-wheel drive high, 4-wheel drive low. Being a Bison, you get the logo stitched into the headrest for your $5,700. Let's take it for a drive. All right, so I've got it in 4-wheel drive because this is a pretty muddy area right here that I'm in. We're just going to take a sort of a fairly standard sort of truck trail and check out the suspension, see how it copes with that. Pretty pothole, and then it becomes sort of GG covered truck trail. I want to see how well the suspension dampens out these bumps. Got a feeling that it isn't going to be quite as smooth as a Ram TRX in Baja mode. That was the smoothest damn thing I've ever driven off-road in my life. We've also got to find some big mud puddles and get it dirty, so we'll definitely find some of those before we tackle some hills and some rougher stuff. The suspension's pretty good so far. Well, that was a huge mud puddle right there. We should probably aim for these so we can get it really dirty. Let's see here. Here's another one. That's pretty good. When you're off-road, the additional 200 pounds of weight doesn't really make a lot of difference. When you're on-road, because this car is actually sort of somewhat painfully slow, 0 to 60 on this turbo diesel is like 9 seconds. It takes an eternity. Now, weirdly, earlier in the week, the check engine light came on and it was telling me that the emissions control system needed a service. I think it might be something to do with the, might be a heater for the DEF system. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, this morning when I got into it, the check engine light had gone off, but it did threaten that in 175 miles, it would reduce my speed to 65. I mean, if it does, it's not a huge deal. This is not a fast truck anyway, so I could probably live with that, particularly as we're going to be going off-road for most of the time that we have it for the rest of the week. It's pretty comfortable to drive. As I said, seats are good if a little hard. Definitely damping out some of the vibration on this particular road. Here's a huge puddle right here. Look at this. Oh, yeah. We are so starved of water here in San Diego that we go nuts when we find big puddles. Wow, that was huge. Steering is pretty good too. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. What I do like though is the throttle modulation, particularly mated with this diesel engine. You know, you don't want a throttle pedal that's too light, so that when you give it too much gas and it flies forward and you get out of control while you're off road. That's not a good thing. But This one is really good. It's got a slightly heavy spring on it. There's not too much revs to build up because it's a turbo diesel. It just relies on its huge amounts of torque. The only downside to it is when you're on road, there's very little horsepower to be able to pass anyone. So you've got to sit. You got to sit with the slow traffic, really. All right, so we're going to come to the end of this little section, and then we're going to head off over to get this thing pretty dirty, I hope. All right, so for this deep rutted section, pretty steep, got the front and the rear diff locks on, and it's in four-wheel drive low. It's a little slippy here, but let's see how it does. Definitely plenty of ground clearance. 8 inches of suspension travel at the front, 10 inches at the rear, 10 inches of ground clearance. I feel like it's going to be a piece of cake. Absolutely no problem. And this thing walked right up here. Zero problems. Piece of cake. All right, back down the hill. Which is equally not going to pose this truck any problems. All right, down we go. Alright, here we are on a new steep hill off-road, just panning around and taking a look at what we're going to go down. So we put both diff locks on, front and rear, using some hill descent control, going over some pretty loose rocks here. Cleared that big one alright. right, we've got a few muddy puddles here. Let's check out the suspension. Oh yeah. Check out that 10 inches of suspension travel. All right, through the water. All right, a little bit more mud to go through. A couple of deep ruts with some water in them. All right, so what do we think? We had a lot of fun in this truck over the week that we had it. Clearly it's quite muddy. Nothing that we went through stopped it, whether it was mud or snow or hills. It did really, really well. Would I buy one? Hell yeah, I'd buy a ZR2. I just wouldn't probably pay the extra for this Bison. So once again, thanks for watching. Don't forget, please subscribe, like. Let me know if you have one of these, whether it's a ZR2 or a regular Colorado or even this Bison one. Let me know what you think. We'll see you next time with another video. Out.